Soil still clung to my boots at my brother's wedding. The chandeliers lit polished marble, and 200 guests in silk and tailored suits barely noticed the woman in the back row with dirt under her nails. Then my father lifted his champagne glass. He smiled like he was about to deliver the punchline. To my youngest, he announced, "A dreamer who plays in the dirt. Tell me, when will a farmer ever afford something like this?" The whole room laughed. What they didn't know was that every orchid, every plate of food, every crystal glass he held had been paid for by me. And what he definitely didn't know was that in 7 days, his company's survival would land in my calloused hands, and I would decide whether it lived or died. Welcome back to Tranquil Drama Stories, where quiet people finally get the last word. My name is Lena Morrow. I'm 33. I grow food for a living. And until recently, my family treated me like a failed experiment. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. And be sure to subscribe. At 4 that morning, I'd been in a cold greenhouse cutting ivory orchids for my brother Sam's wedding. I trimmed every stem, wrapped them in damp linen, and loaded 40 crates myself. Every bloom in that ballroom came from my soil. So did the heirloom tomatoes, baby greens, and the herbs no one could name. I had paid for everything, $40,000 wired through the caterer on condition no one ever learned where it came from. Sam is my little brother, and I wanted the day breathtaking more than I wanted credit. In my family, being seen and being safe were two very different things. So I made the wedding exquisite and myself invisible. I stood at the back in muddy boots and let 200 strangers assume I was staff. The caterer, Marta, caught my eye from across the room and gave me a small nod, the only person alive who knew. I nodded back, picked up a fallen orchid petal, and tucked it in my pocket. I told myself the work would speak for itself someday. By midnight, I'd stop believing that lie forever. To understand my father, you'd have to see the building with his name on it. Caldwell Provisions, a food processing empire he built 40 years ago. Downtown glass tower. His portrait in the lobby. My sister Veronica runs it beside him. A carbon copy of his ambition. Together they decided what the name Caldwell meant. The right watch. The right address. My mother Eleanor never fit. She grew up on 60 acres north of the city. Good soil from her own father, and when she married money, she kept the deed in her own name. On Sundays, she'd press seeds into my palm and say, "The dirt doesn't care what your last name is, only whether you show up." She died when I was 19. Cancer took 8 months. At the end, she pulled me close and gave me the land, 60 acres, and a warning. Don't ever let anyone price you by the size of their wallet. My father got nothing but a widower's suit. Veronica inherited her ambition. I inherited the soil, and I chose our mother's maiden name, Morrow. That detail would matter more than anyone in that ballroom understood. Veronica found me near the coat check before the ceremony, slate silk, 40 years old, and honed to a weapon. She looked me over like a jeweler appraising a forgery. "Oh, Lena," she said, reaching out to straighten my collar. "You came in those." She lifted my hand for the women beside her to see the calluses. The heel split across my thumb. The soil ground deep. "You can scrub the dirt off, sweetheart, but everyone can still smell the barn." The women laughed, that small, practiced laugh. I didn't wipe my hand. I'd earned those calluses over 15 years. But something cold slid through me. No version of me would ever be clean enough for her. The dirt she smelled was in her idea of me. I said, "Save me a seat," and walked to the very back row. The ceremony was beautiful. Sam cried when his bride walked down the aisle, and I cried too, quietly from the rear where no one keeps score. Then, at the reception, they'd seated me at table 11 near the kitchen. An aunt forgot my name twice. A business associate asked, "And what do you do, Lena?" My father answered before I could. "Lena plays in the dirt, grows vegetables, sells them at little markets. We keep hoping she'll grow tired of it." The man chuckled. I could have said I supply 4 regional grocery chains, employ 31 people, that the greens on his plate were mine. Instead, I smiled and said nothing. A person who has to announce her worth at dinner has already lost the argument. But the truth was, I was afraid if they finally looked impressed, the respect would be for the numbers, not for me. Then my father stood to give his toast. He tapped his glass and the room went attentive. the way rooms do for wealthy men. He toasted Sam, the future, the Caldwell name. Then his eyes traveled the orchids, the crystal. The band and I watched him decide to be clever. Family means everything, he said. From the boardroom too. He found me at table 11 and lifted his glass. Well, to the farm. A ripple of chuckles. My youngest grows vegetables, and bless her heart, she works hard. But I look around at all this. He swept his glass across the ballroom I'd paid for, and I have to ask, when will a farmer ever afford a wedding like this? The room laughed. 200 people, all laughing at the girl in muddy boots while a camera panned across my face. Every orchid he gestured at I'd cut. Every plate had come from my ground. I had wired $40,000 into this evening so my brother would have the day he deserved. And my father stood in the middle of it and asked when a farmer could ever afford it. I set down my fork. I gave Sam the smallest shake of my head. Not now, not today. But something inside me that had been bending for 15 years finally, quietly snapped. Sam found me later by the kitchen doors. He looked wrecked. Lena, I'm so sorry. I should have stood up. He was 28 and gentle, the peacemaker. It's your wedding day, I said. You don't spend it fighting Dad on my behalf. He hesitated. The flowers. Chloe recognized the orchids. And the caterer let something slip. His voice cracked. Did you pay for all this? I looked at my brother, the boy who used to follow me out to Mom's land, and I couldn't lie. Don't tell them. Promise me. If they know, it changes what tonight was. He stared. You let him say that. When I let him say it, because being right in front of a crowd isn't the same as being loved. I stopped confusing the two a long time ago. He hugged me hard and went back to his bride. I got my coat, found my truck among the German sedans, and drove home. 90 minutes of dark highway. I finally let myself feel it. For 15 years I'd believed if I worked hard enough, my father would eventually see me. That night I understood it was never going to grow. He'd eaten my food that evening. He just didn't count it because it came from the ground instead of a spreadsheet. You can't earn your way out of someone's contempt when the contempt is the whole point. I pulled into my gravel drive after midnight. The farmhouse was dark. The fields silver under a half-moon 60 acres my mother pressed into my hand while she was dying. I sat in the truck and let the hope die. Then my phone lit up. A number I half recognized, calling at midnight. I almost let it ring. Then I answered. Lena, it's Elena. She runs operations Unflappable, never calls late. My exhaustion vanished. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Something's right. She took a breath. North Star Specialty Foods wants to talk. Not a trial order, the whole thing. A multi-year regional supply contract. Produce and specialty greens. Exclusive. Their head of sourcing called me directly. North Star is a national company whose products sit on shelves in every state. A contract like that changes what the business is. When do they want to meet? Next week. And Lena? There's a partner company on the packaging and distribution side. The sourcing lead was cagey, a big name. They want everyone in one room to sign at once. Something cold moved through my chest. A farmer's instinct for weather she can't yet see. Set the meeting, I said. 2 days later, I met Grant Morrison, CEO of North Star. Silver at the temples. The plain manner of a man too successful to perform. His office overlooked the whole valley. He shook my hand and didn't flinch at the calluses. Something like respect crossed his face. So you're the one. I've been eating your tomatoes for 3 years without knowing your name. He laid it out. North Star needed a certified organic supplier at volume within the region. And he'd spent 8 months searching. Exactly 2 operations qualified. 1 wouldn't expand. That left me. I don't have a second option. We do a premium regional line with Morrow Fields. Or we don't do it here at all. Something shifted inside me. For 15 years, I'd been the one without leverage. Now a national company was telling me the whole plan turned on my name. I opened the folder and saw the distribution partner listed on page 2. Caldwell Provisions. My father's company. North Star wasn't just buying my produce, they were building a supply chain through my father's plant. And neither end knew the other was me. Morrison tilted his head. You know them? I know of them, I said carefully. Good outfit, old company. Though I hear they've had a rough couple of years. Later, I learned the full picture. Caldwell Provisions was in serious trouble, 40 years old and slipping, carrying too much debt. The North Star contract wasn't a nice new account. It was a lifeline. Without this volume, the company my father built might not survive the year. And the whole thing depended on a supplier only I could provide. If you've ever had family look right through you like your work was invisible, stay with me. What happened in that boardroom still gives me chills. Hit subscribe so you don't miss the turn. That Sunday was the anniversary of my mother's death. Every year my father hosts a dinner, and I wanted to see him before the meeting. The house was all polished surfaces and no warmth. Veronica was on her phone, Sam and Chloe, back from their honeymoon. Quiet, my father, thinner than at the wedding, drank more than usual. Halfway through dinner, he started talking about the company as if we were shareholders. We're on the edge of something massive, biggest contract in our history. It closes next week, puts Caldwell Provisions back where it belongs. Veronica shot him a warning look, but he waved it off. It's family. They should know we're going to be fine. He didn't say we were drowning. He didn't have to. He raised his glass to Eleanor, to the company, to the future, and never once looked at me. I sat 3 feet away, eating overcooked roast, while my father described the deal that would save his life. He had no idea the supplier he was counting on was the daughter he'd humiliated in front of 200 people. That night, I spread the North Star contract across my kitchen table, all 40 pages, and read it the way I read a field before planting. The whole deal was a chain. North Star needed a certified organic supplier at volume in this corridor. There was only me. My father needed the distribution volume this contract would send through his plant, or his company folded. That volume only existed if there was produce to distribute, and the only produce was mine. If the supplier walked, the whole thing collapsed. I read it 3 times. The whole structure came down to one signature, and it was mine. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt sick, then quiet, then something steadier underneath, like ground firming up after rain. My father had stood in a ballroom and asked when a farmer could afford a wedding like his. The answer was sitting in a farmhouse kitchen at 2 a.m, holding the single page that decided whether he kept his company at all. Veronica called me on Tuesday. Her voice had the bright, brisk warmth she uses when she needs something. Lena, I know you've got your little farm thing, but are you free Thursday and Friday? We're doing a big cleanup at the plant before a client walk through, and we're short bodies. You're used to physical work hauling. Lifting, you'd probably be faster than the temps. I could get you $20 an hour cash. My sister, co-CEO of a company about to be saved by my signature, was offering me $20 an hour to stack boxes. The client, though she didn't know it, was the same deal running through my fields. You want me to clean your warehouse? I said. It would mean a lot. And you know, we never see you. Then softer, the knife wrapped in wool. You can wash the dirt off your hands, but you might as well put them to good use. She laughed like it was a joke. I stood in my greenhouse looking out at the produce her company was praying to distribute and understood she genuinely could not conceive of me as anything but hired hands. I'll think about it, I said, and hung up. The morning of the meeting, North Star sent a logistics email asking each party to confirm their principal signatory by name. For 15 years, I'd done business behind a curtain contracts under Lena Morrow, Lena sent to meet buyers. The one place my full name lived openly was the Organic Certification Registry. And that's how North Star found me. But a name in a database isn't a face in a room. Now I had to confirm in writing for a meeting my father and sister would be sitting in. I stared at the reply box. If I typed my name, the curtain came down for good. I thought of my mother's door kept unlocked. I typed, Lena Morrow, owner, Morrow Fields, will attend and sign on behalf of the supplier. I hit send. Whatever I'd been protecting, I'd just given it up. And for the first time in weeks, I could breathe. The night before the signing, I went to the cutting garden and cut wildflowers, the scrappy blooms my mother had planted along the north fence 30 years ago. Black-eyed Susans, coneflower, Queen Anne's lace. I set them in a mason jar on the passenger seat. I just wanted something of my mother's in the room. Elena found me and raised an eyebrow. Flowers to a contract signing? Flowers to a contract signing, I said. She squeezed my shoulder. For what it's worth, boss, you built this. With your hands. Whatever happens in that room, that part's already true. And nobody can vote on it. I drove 90 minutes to the city. North Star's tower was 40 stories of glass. I parked my mud-crusted truck between two black sedans and carried my jar of weeds across a marble lobby. In the elevator, I looked at my reflection clean chambray shirt. Dark jeans. Boots scrubbed but unmistakably work boots. Hair braided back for the fields. I looked like a farmer. That was the entire point. Veronica spotted me in the hallway. She was in the sharpest suit I'd ever seen, reviewing something on a tablet. When she saw me, her face did confusion, then horror, then that smooth contempt. "Lena," she hissed, steering me away from the glass doors. "What are you doing here? This is the most important meeting in the company's history. You cannot be here right now. If this is about the wedding," she gripped my arm. "You can wash the dirt off your hands, but not today, please. Just go home." The assistant appeared, "Miss Caldwell. They're ready to start. Mr. Morrison is asking for the supplier's representative." I stepped past Veronica toward the doors and said, "That's me." The conference room was all pale wood and glass. The valley spread 40 floors below. My father sat at the far end in his best suit, gray-faced. Hands folded, the posture of a man about to beg, dressed up as a negotiation. Placed cards marked each seat. I walked to the one that read Morrow Fields, set my mason jar of wildflowers on the polished table and sat down. The room went quiet in stages. My father saw me, and his face did a slow, terrible thing, first not understanding, then pallor. Veronica stopped dead inside the door. She looked at the place card, then at me, and I watched the architecture of her afternoon collapse behind her eyes. I felt no triumph, only a strange and level calm, the calm of a person who has finally stopped hiding and discovered the sky didn't fall. Then, Grant Morrison walked in. He moved the way powerful men move through rooms they own, buttoning his jacket. He nodded to his team, gave my father a businesslike nod, then found me behind the Morrow Fields card. His whole manner changed. He crossed the room toward my end of the table, not my father's, and my father watched the most important man in the deal walk past him to get to the farmer. Morrison clasped my hand warmly. The room held its breath. He looked straight at me and said, "It's an honor to finally meet the owner of Morrow Fields." Silence. My father's mouth came open. Veronica made a small sound. Morrison, oblivious, kept going. "Miss Morrow, I've been trying to get in a room with you for 2 months. Your operation is the entire reason this deal exists. There isn't another supplier in this state who could carry what we're building." He gestured toward my father. "Mr. Caldwell, I understand you two share a name-family connection. Small world." Nobody laughed. My father stared at me as if I'd walked in wearing a stranger's face. Veronica finally spoke, her voice too high. "You're Lena. You're the supplier." "I'm the supplier," I said level. "Morrow Fields, 60 acres, 31 employees year-round, organic certified 11 years. I looked at my father. "Mom's land. The dirt I play in." I watched Veronica recover in real time, the horror reorganizing into something oily. She smiled and turned to Morrison. "Well, isn't this wonderful? My little sister, we are so proud of what Lena's built. She's always been the hardworking one. We've supported her from the very beginning. She was rewriting history, claiming credit for a thing she'd offered me $20 an hour to clean her warehouse. I felt the old pull to expose them all. But I heard my mother. Don't argue with the yardstick. Don't become it." So I let her revision sit there and turned to Morrison. "Should we talk about the terms? 3-year exclusive regional supply contract, roughly $18 million in total value, with Caldwell Provisions handling packaging and distribution." As Morrison laid out the numbers, I watched my father finally do the math. Every figure ran through my fields first. He understood the deal saving his company was a deal I could kill with a word. When Morrison finished, he said, "Are we all comfortable moving to signatures?" My father spoke for the first time, voice small and shaking. "Lena, I want you to come into the company properly. Bring the farm in. Put your name on the door beside mine. Caldwell and Morrow, You've earned it. Come home. There it was. The thing I'd wanted since I was 19. Laid on the table between my mother's wildflowers. All I had to do was say yes. I sat with it. And in the waiting, Veronica did something none of us expected. She spoke, her voice stripped of polish, almost to herself. He never said it to me. Everyone looked at her. She stared at the table. 30 years I ran beside him, closed every deal, and he never once told me I'd done a good job. Not once. She looked up at me, and for a single unguarded second there was no contempt, just a tired, hollow envy. I saw her whole life. She'd chased our father's yardstick because it was the only language he spoke, made herself sharp and cold to earn a sentence he was never going to say. And here he was saying the nearest thing to it to me, the sister who refused to play. She wasn't the architect of the cruelty, she was its oldest casualty. I almost felt sorry for her. Then I turned back to my father. He wasn't offering love, he was offering a promotion, arriving the exact minute I became useful. If I said yes, I'd finally belong at the price of agreeing his yardstick was right all along. No, I said quietly. My father flinched. I'll sign the contract. Your people keep their jobs, all 200 of them. But I won't come into the company. And I won't put my name on your door. I stood and picked up the jar of wildflowers. I already have a gate. My mother built it, and it opens for anyone willing to get their hands dirty. I sat back down, read every page, and signed on the supplier's line, Lena Morrow, owner, in front of them all. I shook Grant Morrison's hand and walked toward the door. Lena, please. My father's voice cracked. I stopped, one hand on the glass, and gave him the truth, gently. You didn't lose me at the wedding, Dad. You lost me a long time before that. But the gate is open. It always was. You just have to be willing to walk out to where I actually am. Then I pushed the door and walked through. The contract held. Caldwell Provisions got its lifeline. The 200 people I'll never meet kept their jobs, the only part of saving my father I've never regretted. He sent a letter 3 weeks later, clumsy and incomplete. I wrote back, because a cracked door is still a door. He hasn't walked out to the farm yet, but he drove by once in the fall. Elena saw his sedan slow at the gate and idle there, looking up the lane at the fields and the sign I'd hung. I left the gate open. Veronica surprised me. A month after the meeting, she texted not a favor, not a barb. It said the wedding flowers had been beautiful and that she was sorry. That's all. She had finally seen the flowers. Coming from Veronica, that was practically a bouquet. Sam started coming out on weekends that spring, first to help, then because he loved it. He wants his kids to grow up knowing which end of a seed goes down. The yardstick that measured us all is still out there, but it's not getting handed down anymore. Not through this gate. I hung a small wooden sign at the entrance that spring. My mother's words burned into cedar. I cut myself. Approval you have to buy was never love, it was a loan. And I'm done paying. Here's what 15 years taught me. Respect you have to purchase is not respect. It's rent. If someone in your life has ever priced you by what you could show them, this one was for you. Keep your gate open. Subscribe to Tranquil Drama Stories, where the quiet ones get the last word. I'll see you at the next one.